I'm hoping to find a little bit of silver lining here with regard to the news that Corelogic has bought out Alamode.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast here. This is a special episode of the Appraiser Coach Podcast. We're going to talk about Corelogic today. That's right, folks. We're gonna dive right in. We're going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it from a little different aspect. I want to remind you that we are sponsored, of course, by DataMaster. DataMaster is the ability to download information into your report, saving you 30 to 60 minutes per report. You can find out more by going to datamasterusa.com. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. We, of course, are sponsored by Alamode Software. Alamode is the software that I've been using for over 2 decades, and it is the ability to get more done with less time. Check them out. Go to alamode.com. That's alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. And, of course, we are sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Working RE is the place that I go to find out what's going on in the appraisal industry. It's right on top of everything that's happening. They will be on top of this latest news as well. Again, it's workingre.com. Once again, workingre.com. Well, folks, the honest truth is I usually record these episodes a couple weeks out. It takes time to edit, takes time to put up, takes time to produce. And most of them are not timely things. They are important subjects, but don't necessarily have a time stamp attached to them. But of course, with the news that occurred this week, specifically on Thursday, it was important, I think, to get the word out on something that's going on out in the appraisal industry. And of course, we're referring to the merger, if you will, the acquisition of Alamode Software by Corelogic. And there, of course, has been a lot. If you're not online, folks, bless you. There's a lot of discussion out on the internet. Some of it is positive. Most of it, let's just be honest, is pretty negative. And understandably so. And by the way, I should just pause here for just a second to just address the elephant in the room here for a second, if you don't mind, if you'll indulge me for just a moment. Alamode is a sponsor of this program. They have been from the very beginning. I am an Alamode user, and some of you might think that might sway what I say today. We are going to talk about the positive, some of the positive aspects of this, if there can be any, right, of this situation. And so you might be, you might be prone to say, well, Dustin's only doing that because Alamode sponsors their program, his program rather, and thus he has a built-in bias. Okay, again, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, they sponsor this program. Yes, that means they give me money. They write me a check every month for my testimonials. From the very beginning, I have been approached by multiple companies. Many companies have approached me because they see the thousands of listeners that are attached to this program, to my website, to my blog. There is an ability for me to reach a great number of a niche population, if you will, and that is valuable to sponsors. From the very beginning, I have made it very clear to all of these sponsors that, number one, the individuals that came on first have a bit of a grandfather clause, if you will. From the very beginning, I approached my advertisers, and I told them, I said, listen, I'm looking at starting a podcast. I do not have any listeners at all because I don't have a podcast yet. I have a lot of followers out there on my blog, but I have no listeners on my podcast. And as a consequence, I'm going to be fair with you. And if you're willing to take a chance on me, I will guarantee that I am not going to add any more sponsors. As long as you are a sponsor, we're going to have those 3 slots on my main podcast and 1 slot on my mini-sode podcast, and you get it. As long as you want to continue to sponsor the program, you get that slot. And that was a deal I made with them, and guess what? From the very beginning, these sponsors have been loyal to this program, and they have seen a great return as we have continued to add listeners from the very beginning. And when I say from the very beginning, what I'm saying is the podcasting platform is pretty cool in the sense that I'm producing this podcast today. By the way, it is Saturday, April 14th, as I'm recording this. This will run tomorrow, Sunday, April 15th, 2018. But when people find this program, the cool thing is a lot of times they'll go back and they'll binge listen from the very beginning. And so the episodes that I put out there 3.5 years ago are still out there, and they can still be found and they can still be listened to. And so when you're a sponsor of this program, it's not just the listenership that's live like you have on the radio, but it's also all of the past sponsorship is out there as well. So the word gets out, and certainly things get outdated a little bit, but for the most part, the testimonial is out there. Speaking of testimonials, I didn't mean to get too off in the weeds there. I want to make it very clear that I am approached often by sponsors, and 2 things. Number 1, I have to turn them down because I do have a responsibility and a loyalty to the individuals who took a chance on me in the very beginning. And so I have to tell people no quite a bit. I do push them to my website and to my blog that goes out to 20,000 plus appraisers every 10 days or so. And so that's an opportunity for them to sponsor, to market their wares, if you will, to appraisers. But as far as the podcast goes, number 1, nobody can join until someone else drops out. Okay. And number two, and this is big, I will never, I don't care how much money you give me. I really mean that, folks. I don't care how much money you throw my direction. I am not going to give a testimonial on air or anywhere else on a product that I don't believe in and that I don't use. When you hear my testimonial, whether it be Working RE Magazine, whether it be OREP Insurance, whether it be a la mode or ANOW or Data Master, folks, you can absolutely count on the fact that the things that I'm telling you are from my heart, they're accurate, and they're real. I want to make it very clear today. The same stands true today. I'm going to say some things today that may be hard for Corelogic, a la mode. If that cost me the sponsorship, it cost me the sponsorship. Now, the honest truth is I'm going to lean towards the positive side of things, and it's not, I want to make it very clear, not because they sponsor this program, and I feel, quote-unquote, obligated to do so. I want to make that very clear. I am choosing to be positive today because of the very fact, as I set this up today, that there is so much negativism out there with regard to Corelogic buying up a la mode. I have read every blog post, every comment on Facebook, anything you can imagine. I know appraisers are upset. And you know what? On one level, rightfully so, there is cause to be concerned. And could I spend the episode today talking about all the negative sides and the fears that are out there with regard to Corelogic buying up a la mode? Absolutely. I'm telling you, folks, there is material far and wide for me. I could do a very, very long episode on all the negativism that is out there and the ideas of what ifs. What will this do to, fill in the blank. I choose not to today, not because they sponsor this program. I want to make it very clear, because there is so much negativism out there. And again, rightfully so, but there's so much out there that I wanted to take a bit of a positive spin on this today. As you know, I am an optimistic man. I also deem myself as a realist, all right? There is such thing as being overly optimistic, and I hope I don't come across that way today. Again, my idea of not dwelling on the negative is not that there's not negative out there. My idea of dealing on the positive is because there is so much negative out there. and I want to be a voice of a little bit of sunshine today and a little bit of, hey, let's step back just for a second and not disregard the negative, not disregard the fear of what this might bring. Okay, I think there's some real questions to be had here. But the idea today is to take a little bit of a different slant on it and say, if you want the negative, if you want the unfortunate things that have happened here, there's plenty of places to go. If you want to see a bit of a positive side, there's the Appraiser Coach podcast, and that's what I want to do today is say, hey, you know what? Take a breath. I know you've felt like you've been slapped across the face, probably not just once, but twice. I get it. I felt some of those same things. And I do want to say, maybe there is cause to be somewhat positive here. And I just want to share with you 3 things, 3 positives that may, and I stress the word may, be an outcome of this latest decision by Corelogic to purchase a la mode. Okay, is that fair? Again, just want to restate, I am not discounting and not saying there's not a lot of negative out there. I'm not saying there's not things to be concerned about. In fact, I'm saying quite the opposite. There are. I think there's some legitimate concerns out there. I think that there's some legitimate things to step back and say, what does this mean for me as an appraiser who uses a la mode software? What does it mean for an appraiser who doesn't use a la mode software? I saw a brilliant comment by somebody the other day on one of these Facebook pages. Somebody had mentioned, say, you know what, this doesn't really bother me. I use ACI. And someone says, you're an appraiser. This affects you. And I thought, that's interesting. If you don't think you're affected by Corelogic as an appraiser, then you don't really understand Corelogic. Just Wikipedia Corelogic and just read through just the history and kind of the overview of what Corelogic is and who Corelogic is, and you'll realize that. And by the way, that Wikipedia doesn't even I don't think, at least what I read, didn't even cover everything, right? It's a very big company, and they have a very big footprint in the appraisal world, in the real estate world, but specifically in the appraisal world. Okay, and so the bottom line is I don't care if you use a la mode software or don't. This does and probably will affect you into the future. Okay, so now that we've set the stage, I want to pause here for just a second, talk a little bit about our sponsors, then I want to jump back. And the purpose of today's episode is simply to take a breath. Okay. Acknowledge that there's some concern out there, but let's focus today on some possible positive things that may come with regard to Corelogic and their purchase of a la mode. Speaking of a la mode, I've been using a la mode software for over 20 years. They've been in business for over 30 years. They are the biggest appraisal software company out there, and there's a reason for that, folks. The mobile software, the ability to use the side-by-side comparison in your grid. That's right. Look at all of your comps at once. The Smart Adjuster, the integration with Excel and some of these other programs is absolutely amazing, folks. It allows me to be able to do more with less. It will help you as well. If you want to know more about a la mode, you can pick up the phone. But I tell you, if you have questions about a la mode, you have questions about this merger, you have questions about what's going on out there, pick up the phone. These guys will talk to you. It's 800 a la mode, or you, of course, jump on their website at alamode.com. I've been using DataMaster now for a couple of years, and speaking of getting more done with less, DataMaster allows me to be able to, do just that. Save 30 to 60 minutes per report. Every report that I use DataMaster on, and I can't use it on all because it's not in all of the MLS areas that I use. I do use 5 MLS systems. Yes, 5. It is in 2 of the 5. Not even the ones that I use most often. Bummer. Trust me, it's a bummer, because when I do use DataMaster, it's absolutely amazing. Helps me to get more done. It will help you as well. Go to datamasterusa.com to learn more about it. Again, it's datamasterusa.com. And finally, we are sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Working RE, of course, I'll tell you, they do have the backs of appraisers. They do understand what it is like to be an appraiser, because they're constantly sharing information about what's going on in the appraisal profession. It will be no different with this merger between Corelogic and a la mode. I guarantee you're going to see a lot of information coming from Working RE, and you're going to want to be poised to know what's going on. If you have not already, please sign up for their free newsletter. It goes out on a weekly basis, if not more. Anytime an article is written, and if you want to know what's going on, with a la mode, with Corelogic, you're going to want to be signed up for that newsletter. Go to workingre.com. Again, it's workingre.com.
I'm only the appraiser.
Let me appraise you this.
All right, folks, we are back. We're talking today about, about the merger, about the acquisition, about the big bad giant, as I've heard it explained on Facebook. The big bad wolf came in and gobbled up the little sheep. Corelogic, of course, purchased a la mode last Thursday, so 2 days ago as of this recording, 3 days ago as of the time this will air. If you've been living under a rock, you might not have known that, but surprise! And speaking of, surprise, I don't think it was much of a surprise to anybody, really. I mean, it might have been a little interesting that it happened when it did, but I don't know that anybody has not, if they've watched what's going on in the appraisal world, and specifically with Corelogic, I don't think there's anybody who has not thought that this would have been a possibility, right? And it happened, and there's a lot of individuals feeling quite rear-end hurt. This family program, we'll put it that way. And there's a lot of negativism out there, of course, and there's a lot to be concerned about. Again, I am not Pollyanna-ish enough to say that there's not some concerns here. And I did address some of those, by the way. I did go Facebook Live with my All-Star team on the day it happened, Thursday, and spent about a half hour. In fact, I think the video was exactly 30 minutes. It was kind of cool. I was driving home from appointments, and I went live on Facebook, and I just talked to my peeps, and just talked about Corelogic, talked about a la mode, talked about some different things that were on my mind. And, that's one of the great things about the All-Star team is we do have that connection with one another. We are a positive group. We are constantly looking for, what's the bright side? What's the silver lining to some of these negative things that we're dealing with as appraisers? And that's what we did on Thursday. By the way, if you want to listen to that video, if you want to hear what my feelings are on any of this, go to my All-Star Team page and check it out. You do need to be a member. It's only $9 a month. I encourage you to sign up, but to become a member of my All-Star Team by going to theappraisercoach.com, and you can listen to the video. You can watch the video. It's posted up there. Great comments underneath. Join in the conversation. Talk to me. But the difference between what I did on Thursday and today is I'm taking a very directed, very niche aspect today on the podcast that I didn't necessarily take on Thursday. And that is, I want to talk about three positive things with regard, or three potential, okay, let's put that out there. Three potential positive things that might come with the integration of Corelogic and a la mode, okay? One of the fears out there is that Corelogic is such a big company, and I've heard the term monopoly thrown around, that they're such a huge company that is a negative. Okay, folks, you would be completely ignorant if you did not acknowledge that is a potential, okay? That big is not always necessarily better, okay? Now, I say the words not necessarily. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of, what ifs. What could happen to this? What could happen to that? But I want to take a step back just for a second and say, is there a positive side to being big, right? I don't know how many of you have built websites, but I want to give you an analogy, okay? And set this up this way. Any of you have built websites, if you've ever used like HTML, and it's been a long time since I've done that, right? It's not one of my fortes. It's not one of my expertises. I've done it. I've done it enough to be respectful of any programmer that can do it, okay? But I'll tell you what's a lot easier, and that is WordPress, okay? WordPress is so much easier to build, okay, because the tools are integrated. Now, it's still built on an HTML platform, but there's a difference between pulling up a simple whiteboard and starting to type in HTML code versus going to, say, a WordPress site and then buying a theme, okay, or purchasing a theme or downloading a theme and then starting to, finagle the theme. It comes with a generic background, a generic headline, a generic video of it, whatever, and then you start to insert your material into that, right? The great thing about WordPress and some of these other sites that are similar to this is the integration, is the ability to be able to pull in themes, to pull in plugins, to pull in shopping carts, to pull in polls and surveys and email responders, and use integrations with other outside third-party applications as well, right? The great thing about WordPress is the integration, the ability to be able to use more. Now, putting the fear aside for a second, indulge me for just a moment. What if there is a silver lining to Corelogic taking over a la mode, acknowledging that big is not necessarily better, but is there something to look forward to in the sense that Corelogic is big? It is integrated. It owns companies like Marshall Swift. It owns other companies, including title companies and appraisal management companies. And I mean, I could just go on and on and on. Again, go to the Wikipedia page. They are a big company. Again, is that something to be fearful of? Possibly. But there might be a silver lining here. What if we had a company which allowed us to integrate all of these things and make our lives easier as appraisers? I think that there's something to be said there. Is it a strong argument? No. Let's just be clear. It's not a strong argument, but I'm hoping to find a little bit of silver lining here with regard to the news that Corelogic has bought out a la mode. Okay, that's number one. Number two. I am becoming more and more aware when I talk to smart people. And folks, by the way, if there's a principle that you need to learn in life, it's you know what, if you're as dumb as Dustin is, surround yourself with smart people, because it makes you, number one, look smart, and it makes you, number two, become smart. When I surround myself with smart people, smarter than I am, I learn things, right? And I'm learning as I go. And as I have an opportunity to interview people on this program, or rub shoulders with people at conferences, or talk to them online, I'm always constantly learning things, right? And one of the things that I learned, that I'm still learning, is the future of appraisal and what it is all about, right? And I'll tell you, before it used to be about the data. It used to be people would come to us, and I think, I just recently interviewed a really, really smart guy on this program. His name is George Dell, and George reminded me of the history of appraisal. And one of the things he said was, it used to be that banks, lenders, clients would come to us because we had the data, right? We were the data keepers. We were the data masters, if you will. And no pun toward data master, of course, but we had the data. We had the data, and people would come to us because we had the data. Folks, that's changed. It's changed. We no longer have the data, right? Corelogic has the data. Our MLS systems have the data, which, by the way, Corelogic owns a lot of those MLS systems as well. Speaking of that first point that I made, the integration, right? So the data is out there. The data is out there, and the idea here is that we as appraisers have to reposition ourselves. If we are going to be okay into the future, okay, one of the things that we have to look at is, what is our role? What is the value that we bring to the table with our clients? It, frankly, folks, is no longer data. It just isn't. On some level, sure. We've done the inspection, we've done the walkthrough, and there's information there. Yeah, okay. But that data is available everywhere else, right? It's not about owning the data anymore. It's about interpreting the data, right? And so maybe there's a positive here. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard from appraisers over the last couple of years, and again, rightfully so, they definitely have a point here, and I've complained as well, is that Fannie Mae is collecting all of these appraisal data points, putting them into this whole big CU thing, right? The UAD system, and they don't share it with us. And in fact, sometimes they actually get upset at us and they say, hey, Mr. Appraiser, you marked C3 on this report and 6 other appraisers marked C4. What gives? And you're thinking, well, I don't know. Let me see the 6 other appraisers. No, they're not going to share that with you, right? They're just going to give you this generic statement that you're wrong and they must be right. And you're thinking, well, wait a second. I walked through the property. I did the measurements. I took the pictures. I wrote down the data. No, it's a C3, dude. So here's the problem. Appraisers are complaining, saying, hey, listen, if we're going to give all this data to Fannie Mae, they should at least be willing to allow us to see it. Okay, there's that rumor out there that lenders can see the UAD data set, but we can't, right? And that, how fair is that? Not very, right? It's not very fair. And so on one sense, that's a negative thing, but maybe there's some positive thing here with regard to Corelogic. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard over the last couple of days, again, rightfully so, is what about the data? What happens to the data? What will this mean in the future when it comes to the data? Is it possible, indulge me here for just a moment, is it possible that maybe on some level this is a positive thing when it comes to data? If we're going to be upset over here that Fannie Mae won't share the data, what if we now have more access to data because Corelogic purchased a la mode? What if? Is it a possibility? I think it's a possibility. I think that's number 2 on my list of possible silver linings when it comes to Corelogic acquisition of a la mode. All right, finally, the last thing. This is just kind of a general thing, something I thought of as I drove down the road today, just out of the blue. And I want to be clear as we close up the program today, if I have not been clear enough already. Number 1, I am willing to risk my sponsorship or a la mode sponsorship of this program by just stating the obvious. If you think I've been too positive and you think I'm doing it because of the sponsorship, you're just dead wrong. You've come to the Appraiser Coach podcast or to my blog or anything else because you know me. I'm going to shoot straight with you, right? I'm from Idaho. I've actually grown up with guns, and there's something called shooting straight, right? You're going to get the straight shot when it comes to what I share. If it risks monetary gain for me, oh well. I'm not willing to be a yes man. I'm not willing to say whatever needs to be said. Everything that I say on this program is from my heart. Everything I say on this program is accurate. And when I give a testimonial of any company, regardless of whether or not they're paying me to do so, you're going to get it straight from the heart. And I'm also going to tell you the things that I don't like about that company, right? And I think that there are some true concerns out there with regard to Corelogic's acquisition of a la mode. I'll be honest with you, folks. Let me just lay it out there. I was driving down the road when I got the word. Okay, it was Thursday morning. I had a lot of inspections that day. I was driving down the road, and my initial thought was the same as anybody else out there. Holy cow. Wow. That felt like a gut punch. Let's be honest. That's how I felt. And it kind of lingered there for a while. And then I started thinking, you know what? Hold on. Back up. Okay. Sometimes our initial reaction is not necessarily the best. It may be the best, right? Read the book Blink and find out about gut reactions. Okay. Malcolm Gladwell just lays out the scientific reasons for them. Sometimes we need to trust our gut. Okay. So I'm going to lay that out there. When I first heard of it, I was sucker punched just like anybody else. And I thought, wow, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for appraisers? What does this mean for the future of our profession? Fast forward to today. This is actually one of the reasons I decided to get on the microphone today. I actually was just going to leave it alone. I just thought, I'm just going to leave it alone. Just let it ride, what have you. I already addressed my feelings on Thursday with a Facebook live feed on my All-Star Team page. Do I really need to address anything on the podcast? And I'm driving down the road today, and I'm thinking a little bit about this acquisition, and this came to mind, okay? Again, indulge me for just a moment. Does it counterbalance all of the negative out there? Probably not. But it's a positive thought, and I want to be positive today. So the other thought that came to me is there's a lot of appraisers out there who are quite concerned about their future, quite concerned about the future of appraising. There's a lot of appraisers who think, I don't like the direction that appraisal is going. Do I even have a job 3, 5, 10 years from now? Now, I'm going to say something very honest here. I think that is a good question to ask. I don't think that is fear-mongering. I don't think that's dwelling in the negative. I think that's being real, folks. You would be a poor businessman, poor businesswoman, if you did not step back sometimes and say, okay, what does the future look like, and is this the direction that I still want to continue to go? There's a lot of appraisers that are jumping ship and going on to other careers. You know what? God bless them. Good for them. If that works for them, I wish them all the best. I'm not jumping ship yet. I think the future for appraisal is different, but good. Now, here's the positive side of this. Is it possible, given what Corelogic is it possible that this is a positive thing for the future of appraising? Think about that for a second. If the smart people at Corelogic, and let's face it, we may not like them right now. We may be angry with them right now. We may be worried about, all the gobbling up they're doing of our profession. But if you're worried about appraisers even being around into the future, can I ask you a question? Why is it that Corelogic would purchase software which allows appraisers to do their work? Think through that for just a second, okay? I know some of you are screaming, because of the data. Okay, maybe. But is it possible that Corelogic is not as worried about the future of appraising as you and I might be? That they kind of see where this train's going, and instead of jumping ship and going to other sectors, to other professions, to other industries, okay, they're still focused on appraisal. They must see that there's going to be a need for valuation into the future. At least that's the way I choose to see it. All right, folks, I would love to hear your comments, love to hear your feedback. Please jump on the podcast comments below, or, of course, on my website. You can go to theappraisercoach.com. And if you're interested in hearing a rant, if you will, on Thursday, as I just kind of spoke off the cuff as to what was going on with Corelogic and a la mode, please join me at the All-Star team. Would love to have you there. Thanks for joining me today. It's been great, and we will talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.